The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Phixated Podcast. I am your host, Mike Azalina, and I am joined by a guy who got the W. Regsy Boo, it is a week to the moment that the Eagles have won the Super Bowl. You feel any different? Like, where you at?
I feel like I'm still recovering from the lack of sleep from Sunday into Monday. I think I stayed up till like 4 a.m. just watching Twitter videos and anything I could get my hands on, quite frankly. So that led to a very tired morning. Yeah, this has just been a week of just consuming as much possible content, any and all things that are out there.
Yeah.
Articles, videos, tweets, Instagram posts, like it doesn't matter where it's coming from. I'm just like, as soon as I see it, I'm fine. I'm watching it. I'm rewatching it several times, in some cases, many, many times. And that's just where I've been. Like this whole week is just, I'm of course not, I think we've moved into the stage of just appreciation, of just looking back at this and being, sitting back and realizing, man, they did it. They did it. And they did it against that guy and that team and that coach, and made them look foolish in the process. I listen and re-listen to so many podcasts and everything. That's where I've been at for 7 days. That's where I've been at.
Yeah, same. I did the film stuff, right? Like I feel like I've done it every week, so I couldn't not do it in the Super Bowl. And we'll talk a little bit about some of that. I don't know that I think it'll just come up naturally as we talk about the mic'd up. We're gonna recap the mic'd up situation, which was so much fun to listen to and watch, and I've watched it like 4 times now. We'll talk about that. We can talk a little bit about what was released today. You and I talked about it briefly before we came on. Something that the Eagles social media team does after pretty much every game. But this was access like we've never experienced. And of course, we want to talk about the parade. So we're gonna talk all things. And then just so everybody's aware, this is our last full bore Eagle show. Until maybe next January, or I should say next December, after baseball season wraps again, because starting on Thursday when we record, we will be back in on the Phils. It is spring training is kicking off. Everybody's there. So we'll be fully back in. We'll do Phils and some bird stuff here and there. But this will be our last full birds episode until next season. And they've earned it, Regs.
That's right. They did.
They've earned it. Could you imagine if they had gotten eliminated in like the divisional round? What would we have done with ourselves on this show?
I mean, I don't know. I guess luckily,
we'll never know.
Yeah. The Phillies were still would have been a few weeks away. The Sixers, like, why would we ever talk about them? The Flyers are kind of the same. I guess we'd have to find, I don't know. It'd be one of those things where we'd have to come up with some different topic. We'd be talking about, like, I don't know, some college story, or we'd be, reliving maybe like the 08 playoffs or something. We'd go back and do a retrospective on the 08 Phillies playoff run or something like that.
Yeah, we'd probably have to make some shit up, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But man, what a week of content, like you said. I feel like I've taken it all in. I still don't know that I'm like fully accepting at this point what I've accepted they're Super Bowl champions. I don't think I fully accepted what went down in that game, which kind of brings me to let's start with the mic'd up. Let's go there because that was released on Wednesday. It was released live on NFL Network. And unfortunately, I don't get NFL Network. So I had to wait until YouTube the next night.
Oh, okay.
Which, was tough because I was seeing some stuff released on Twitter. And so I was trying to scroll by it because I wanted to watch it all in totality. And man, it did not disappoint.
Oh my God.
Such cool, like even Andrea sitting there watching it was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, this is so cool to hear the way, and she was really complimentary of Chris Jones, who I was very impressed by watching that back and his mentality.
That guy's a stud.
Yeah, just the way he talked to, like, at the end when he was like, there's learning in this.
Yeah.
Like, we've been spoiled and there's learning in this.
Yeah.
Well, just a really cool thing to hear. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't think I have too much to say about the Chiefs side. Like, felt like some of it felt forced at times from them.
Well, yeah, I think they had to try and do something. They had to try and show some way that they were trying to keep themselves in the game. I
don't even know that I mean that. I mean, like, early on. Like, I don't know.
Oh, like from the
I
actual players, you mean? Like it was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I felt that way a little bit about Travis Kelce at times during it. Not that I like the guy any less. That's not what I'm saying. For me, it felt like he almost knew from the jump.
He was out of it quickly.
Yeah.
Like you said, he might have been the first one. I'm not sure Pat really thought they were out of it until the strip sack.
Yeah.
I think is when he came back to the bench and was just like, woof. Like, that's kind of it. I think that's kind of it.
Yeah.
But Travis, like, guys were going up to him. They showed a couple clips of, before drive started, guys going up to him like, come on, man. Like, we still got this. And he's kind of like, he's there, but he's not walking up and down the sidelines getting everybody pumped.
And that was sort of what made me think. I almost wonder if he felt it earlier.
Yeah.
It almost felt like forced from him at times when players were coming up to him.
Yeah.
But let's talk about our side, because I do see a lot of like Eagle fans on social media right now. I'm not calling out specifically Eagle fan. I think this happens every year where like the team who wins the Super Bowl goes at the team who loses the Super Bowl, and that just tends to be the case. And I kind of want to just lay focus on our guys and what we noticed from our guys in that mic'd up. Now the Eagles really only had 4 dudes mic'd up.
Yeah.
It was Sirianni, Hurts, Barkley, and Bond.
Yep.
Well, you got to hear a lot of different things because of it. And I'm curious to know some of yours. So let's go back and forth here. We'll do like 3 each of like moments that jumped, right? Yeah. Things that jumped out to us. And I'll say the first one for me was the Zach Bond, Cooper DeJean exchange on the sideline after the interception, where, he goes over to Cooper and he basically says, you saw I had those 2 guys in the flat and you jumped the crossing route. And Cooper was like, yeah. And Cooper's trying to like finish the thought. And before he could finish, Zach Bond's like, that's some veteran shit.
Yeah.
That's some veteran shit.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, tell him. That part struck me for 2 reasons. You really see Zach Bond in a different light throughout the whole thing, especially in that moment. But you also see not just the maturation process of Cooper DeJean and how well he has grasped this defense and sort of become the linchpin in a sense, but also that it's recognized by a guy who's been around for 5-6 years now.
Right.
So I love that one. It's not my favorite moment, but it's one that I've talked about a few times now.
Yeah, that's a great one. There was another, just to piggyback off that just a little bit, there was another, Cooper, when asked about the pick 6, one of the things he said, he's like, what's one of the first things you think of now? He's like, I think the first thing I think of is that Q probably would have had it if I wasn't there. And
at least knocks it away.
And then I know Fran talked about in his film review that Quinion, that's not his guy originally. He picks that guy up and flies across the field, running with Xavier Worthy across the field to be in a position to break that up. Even if Cooper's not there, that's going to be an almost impossible catch by Worthy.
Well, and before, because I want you to give your first one, even on that play, something I noticed watching it back, I noticed the cue moment. I noticed Cooper seeing Pat's eyes and adjusting. But Warren Burks sees nobody on his side of the field, sees Pat cut the whole side of the field off, and if somehow that ball gets through or they dump it in the flat, the Eagles have every defender on that side of the ball now, on that side of the field, because he's like, there's no one over here. And that's the instinctual stuff that this team just they were not coached up on previously.
And I think that's why Bond is in the flat, because in his area there's nobody. So he sees the guys go into the flat and he follows them because he's like, I gotta do something. I can't just stand here doing nothing.
Yeah.
Which leads then to Cooper having the same idea. Like, nobody's here. I got to go find work, is a phrase that they brought up a few times. But it was just, it was a cool sequence.
Yeah.
I'm sure this will be one of yours. But the first thing I think of is the Hurts Calcaterra back and forth. And I think Calcaterra goes, is Jalen Hurts going to smile now? And Jalen's response, I think, is like this aha moment for every Eagles fan in the entire world who really truly follows this team and cares about it. It was the first real look into this dude's psyche, I think, on at its truest form. And he looks at Calcaterra, again, not the most likely pair you would think would be conversating on the sideline, but good for those two. And Jalen, in a moment of absolute truth, looks at him, Grant Calcaterra of all people, and goes, that last one changed my soul, man. And you're just like, whoa. Like, it was like the last puzzle piece for the Jalen Hurts jigsaw puzzle to understand all the platitudes in these interviews and all the keep the main thing and all this stuff. You're just like, and it was an unbelievable moment of seeing Jalen Hurts being absolutely 100% truthful. Yeah. And it was just like a whoa. And again, we'll talk about it later, like the unscripted kind of reinforced that fact even before the game, right? And it was just one of those moments that you're just like, oh my God. Like, if you just needed to, if you went back and watched every Jalen Hurts interview from the past 2 years, the stuff about him maybe not being the most open guy, right? Sitting on the sidelines with the same look on his face, whether it's a touchdown or they're down by 30. And then none of that might make sense until that very mic'd up moment. And it was just the most unbelievable, wash of, holy crap, it makes so much sense now. And to hear it directly from him is like the cherry on top in this conversation with Grant Calcaterra of all people. And for him to I think that is Jalen truly opening up. And it was just wild. Like, the video is worth that 45 seconds by itself.
Yeah, I do love that one. It's not on my short list. I have another Jalen moment, but I think Jalen, that game awoke something in him that I think he's going to just carry with him for the rest of his career. Over the course of the last week, we've seen him on The View, SportsCenter, Good Morning America, The Today Show, right? Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. He's on all these shows. And it feels like everybody asks him the same question. Are you going to take the background on your phone down now? And his answer has been no the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that loss created some sort of monster within Jalen.
Yes.
Where, he talked about it, I don't know, I think it was the day before the parade, the locker cleanout day, where he said the pain of losing was stronger than the joy of winning.
Yeah.
It was he wasn't trying to say that winning the Super Bowl wasn't an amazing feeling.
Right.
He was saying that the losing it actually hurt far worse than winning it brought joy. And so they don't want to lose that again. They don't want to have that feeling again. And this is a guy who clearly has the mental makeup. And it's a scary mental makeup for other teams, because when he gets to that postseason, he's going to work for that moment. And that's a darn good team around him. There's a ton of good players, and we're going to talk about one in a moment here. Because I do want to highlight Saquon.
Yeah,
as my second one.
Just last thing I want to say on this particular thing, I think it clicks so many things into place. That's why I'm rambling a little bit about it. But it was just such an aha moment for myself, and I think for a lot of fans. But it also kind of makes you understand those moments where he maybe takes it too far. And then you have to remember, he's 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, sometimes like he's calibrating how to figure this out. Mm-hmm. All while trying to be the leader of a national football franchise. At his age, being paid what he's paid, sponsored by Jordan, all these things. And so I do think there's times where he's so singularly focused that the other parts that come with being a franchise quarterback just don't penetrate the wall. They haven't made it over the wall. And we've seen that, like obviously in the reports that we see, in the, the reporting that we see, the articles that come out, all the talk about him. Like sometimes, yes, he walls himself off too much when the requirements of a franchise quarterback are sometimes not about you. It's about everyone around you and elevating them. Which I think he does, but I just, there's been moments, and I'm not saying this is his whole career, but there have been moments. And when you think about it in that context, he's 26 years old. This loss happens, and he literally says, "This changed my soul." Mm-hmm. Like you can kind of see, like, yeah, I can see maybe you have a week or two where you're just like, I'm going into my bubble, and I've got to focus on whatever I need to focus on to get through whatever I need to get through. And that could cause some of these things that we've been reading about or hearing about, things like that. It just clicked like a bunch of things into place for me. Yeah. And it was just, you're just like, again, that whole video could have been 45 seconds of just that. And I could talk about it for 2 hours of all the things that that spider web off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a good moment. It really was. I'm going to push my Saquon thing off for one more. I have another one I want to talk about, and it's any moment with Nick Sirianni on this thing, starting with he and his son on the sideline. That was a really cool moment with him. Every time they sacked Mahomes, he was counting it off.
Yep.
And, we just talked about Jalen, but seeing that 0 sack T-shirt 2 years ago at the parade was eating at Nick for 2 years. That was eating at him. Yeah. And say what you want about the guy. If you're a competitor, you're a competitor. And that was going to eat at him. And he never said that's why he was counting them off. But I can bet that's why he was counting them off.
Yeah.
This game, or this video, more so for me than anything, showed us finally what the hell Nick does in a game managing situation, right? We saw many instances, like immediately on the first possession. It's a long one. We're going.
Yep.
Right. Later in the game, when Mahomes made that ridiculous play where he flipped it, he's pacing the sideline. Was he across? Like he's trying to figure out if he wants to challenge. But more so than anything,
on a rewatch, I think he was for the record.
Was he?
To me, I think the referee said like they looked at it and he wasn't, but like I don't know, it was close.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't even tell you.
Yeah,
and don't. Yeah, I didn't really.
Not that it makes any difference. It was just I was like, let me go back and look at that.
In the rewatch, I don't even think and in the film review, I don't even know if I got that far.
No,
honestly.
fair enough.
But the big one for me was the play action to Smitty that wrapped it.
Yep.
And Nick basically says to Kellen, we get it, we score, it's over.
Yeah.
Do it.
We score
Run
here,
the
it's
play.
over. Yep.
Run the play. And not long after that says like to him to Kellen again, like, don't lose any yards here.
Yep.
Like, so you can tell where his hands are. It's, I think on PHLY they talk about, he builds the menu and then tells you where you can choose from. And that's essentially what this felt like. Oh, you can choose any of these salads on that possession, right? Like we're up by 4 scores still. Just don't lose yards. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
If you don't use, so you can pick from any of our salads and we'll go from there. So to me, like that was really cool to see of Nick, but I think more so than that was at the end, watching certain guys come make sure they saw him, hugged him, Smitty and AJ Brown being the two that dumped the Kool-Aid on him, right? The AJ moment with the book, Nick going to the team and being like, we can enjoy this for a moment.
Yeah.
Like letting the wall down a little bit. I liked seeing what I saw from Nick, and I've already made my mea culpas. People might pull out some of my audio from earlier in the year, and you have every right to. But I've owned it. I've said he proved me wrong. This dude's going to get an extension. He's going to be here for a while. We better get used to him, whether you like him or not.
Yeah.
But I really liked the things I saw from a mic'd up Nick.
Yeah, that's another great one. Yeah, and then after that call happens, like Kellen and him instantly like running at each other, just going like, "Yep, that was it."
Yep. And
yeah.
the Cooper interception was fun to watch him on too.
Yeah, for sure.
That was fun. So yeah, he's my number 2 for sure.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm gonna leave my Saquon one for. We'll see like after what you want to say. We'll see if it's the same one. If it's not, I'll bring it up. But I think the next one for me, non-Saquon category, was the Jalen Hurts Devontae hug towards the end. And this one more specifically for Devontae, because he's not highlighted in this video much. God, I would have wished he had a mic on after that catch.
Yeah.
Or AJ did, just to hear what he was saying. But they caught a little bit of him and Goddard when he came back to the sideline, and him and AJ. I think both, he said, both of their eyes like got real big when the corners pushed up on him on that play. Because they knew what the play call was, obviously. And
check. Yeah.
And both of them were like, he pushed up on me, and they both were just like, I got it. Like, it's over. Yeah. So that was really cool. But I think the emotion from Devontae and being in Louisiana, and there were some great stories about like his high school, his senior year high school championship game. Somebody wrote a good story about his like old high school coach. Went to interview him. But I freaking love Devontae Smith. I think he's like the epitome of like sacrificing for the team and being about winning. And he goes about it humbly and quietly, and is just always there when you need him to make a play. Always. It's always that guy, number 6. So to see like the emotion coming out of him and like, him truly feeling, the significance of that moment was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot.
It's interesting because we didn't see much of Devontae like at all, and I forget who said it. I don't remember where I even heard it, read it, whatever. But like that, I think Jalen might have said it. You know what? Jalen said it on The View. I'm certain it was on The View. Jalen talked about how that throw, he's like, Smitty didn't even practice all week.
Oh, right.
Because of his injury. And that's just the type of guy he is. And at the parade, you barely saw him. Like, we didn't even know he was there.
Right.
Because that's just who he is.
Yeah.
And he this is a guy who they made sure to go up and get in the draft. And you're right, he's just always there. He's just always there. We're very fortunate to have a guy like Devontae Smith, and I while you've got an AJ Brown with all the accolades, and you have Saquon Barkley with all the attention, and a defense where Cooper DeJean, no one's talked about him all year, and then now it's the only guy that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
But Devontae Smith, man, week in, week out. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save my Saquon one. We can have like a joint Saquon conversation. It sounds like we both want to talk about him. So I'm going to do a different one.
Okay.
And I'm going to do just the whole throw. Like the throw that put the nail in the coffin. And not even so I'll tell you what. The view of the throw on the actual mic'd up is incredible because it's from the end zone.
Right. Yep.
So you see the whole ball flight, right? But then it's what happens after it that just gets me every time. And Jalen has a couple of like one-liners in this whole thing that get me. But you get Lane coming up to him and he's like, "It's not over," and he shakes his hand. And Landon Dickerson comes over, "You're the fucking man," right? Like, or it might have been Cam. It was one of the two. And then Jordan Mailata comes back because he had been over there. He's like, "I love when they doubt you. I love when they doubt you." And he comes back over and he says it again. "They doubt you. They doubt you. And you prove them wrong." And Jalen just freaking stone cold killer. I know. Like, and it's similar to afterward where I think it was I don't know if it was like a NFL guy or
seemed like an Eagles PR or something like that kind of guy.
He came up and said like Super Bowl MVP, and Jalen like hesitates for a minute, but then responds Super Bowl champ.
Yeah,
and that just goes back to what you were talking about before. This gave us a glimpse into what Jalen's mindset is. He truly does hear the talk. And he does use it to motivate him. And someone asked the question, like, what happens when it stops? Well, I'm here to tell you it's never going to stop. I mean, the guy just put up one of the best Super Bowl performances in the modern era. And I open TikTok today and there's somebody on there saying they would take there's like 10 quarterbacks they would take over Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Or 18 different quarterbacks could step in and win a Super Bowl with this roster. Which was a roster, by the way, that most people didn't think was good enough to win a Super Bowl before the season started. So that's fun.
Yeah.
But those moments, especially that one where he just basically looks at Jordan Mailata and says, "I know," it's just very telling of what his mindset is. And it's a dangerous mindset for the rest of the NFL because Jalen Hurts will always find a way to create doubt in his own head, and not about himself, but others for himself. So I loved it. I love that part, and I love the part of him walking on the field at the end and saying Super Bowl champ.
Yeah. It's a great one.
Those two parts, both Jalen focused, Jalen centric, are the ones for me. So Bond and then Sirianni and then Jalen for me. Who's your?
Yeah, all right. If I'm picking another non-Saquon division, let's see. Because there's a bunch of good Saquon ones.
Yeah. I just think Saquon deserves his own little moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's I think I'll have to go with Vaughn. It's like the first possession the defense is out there. And he's the one with the green dot now. Right? He's the one calling the plays. And he just looks at every guy and he's like, look, before we get started, I love all of you guys. I have confidence in every single guy that steps out here on this field. He's just like, don't lose that, and like, let's go do what we do. Yeah. And gets into it. And again, if he doesn't have the green dot and isn't the one calling the plays, he might not have that moment. That's probably Nakobe saying something like that. And even I thought it was really cool that Nakobe was part of the guys standing up to talk in unscripted. You're like, whoa, like Nakobe? Like, that guy is, clearly a leader.
Good head
on
his shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just it was a really cool kind of chance for Bond with the season that he's had coming to Philadelphia, not being a part of 2 years ago. So really isn't coming in with the same kind of baggage, but has come in to truly make this run even possible. It doesn't happen without that guy, unless that guy plays the way he plays this season. So I just thought it was a cool moment that he got to kind of talk to everybody and be the guy.
Yeah, him calling his own shot was also fun.
Yeah.
And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson leading them in yoga breathing techniques was also hilarious.
Also when Morrow came up and was like, "You missed that in practice," so he must have had a similar kind of chance at an interception, and then of course pulls it off in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was his response. He goes, "Called that bitch in the Super Bowl."
Right. Yeah.
So with Saquon, so many moments, but I think for me, it's like the overall status with which he's held in the organization. And that came very clear. Like, yeah, we could talk about, when Jalen throws that ball, and he's immediately celebrating, or how he's constantly keeping people level-headed on the sideline. Or how he's really complimentary of the Chiefs defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's when he goes and hugs Jalen, and Jalen tells him, "You were the missing piece." And he's like, "No, it's all of us." And Jalen was like, I know, but you were the last puzzle piece. And then he hugs Howie, and Howie's thanking him for believing in him. And then he hugs Nick, and Nick tells him how much he loves him, not just the player, but the leader that he is.
Yeah.
And then Jeffrey Lurie hugs him and says, "You're everything. You're the epitome of what I believe a football player in this city should be." All of those interactions to me on this mic'd up speak worlds about who Saquon Barkley is. And we've thought highly of him all year from the player perspective. And we've had moments where we could be like, "Oh, what a leader." But I think those moments with those guys holding him in that sort of esteem tells us more than we could ever want or imagine knowing. Like, this is an organization who was here 2 years ago, has had some of the greatest leaders that you could possibly imagine on that team and now on this team. And they're all saying this to Saquon Barkley. And I just think that to me was the most telling thing from the whole 40-minute ordeal, was just hearing what everybody thinks about this guy. Even Zach Bowen. I'm so glad that MFer's on our
Yeah.
right? Like, and that's not the same sort of element that we're talking about with the other four, but just the respect he has in that locker room.
Yeah.
I can't get over it.
Yeah. My favorite Saquon thing is when the running backs coach comes up to him, and there's a few times where he's just like, "God, that defense is playing well." Like, even he gets tackled, he's like, "Golly," like there's nothing. And look, credit to the Chiefs defense. He was just like, "Look, they're playing crazy well right now."
Yeah.
It's like stopping the run specifically. And they did. Credit to them. They did.
Sure did.
But the running backs coach comes over and sits down and is like, they spent all their time trying to stop 2-6. And he's like, "You know what that did? It left everyone else open to cook."
Yep.
And he's like, "You keep this team calm. You go out there, you be the level head. You keep this team going." And then Saquon's just like, "It's fine. I'll have a trophy after this." And the coach just kind of punches him in the chest. He's like, "That's what I'm talking about."
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the ultimate, obviously good for that coach for kind of just saying it out loud. Sometimes you just I'm sure Saquon knows that. Sometimes you're right. As a coach, you just got to say it out loud to be like, "Look, we're on the same page, man. I got your back. Let's keep doing what we're doing." And Saquon, as he has all year, never wavers from just like, "Good. Do you see who I have on my team? Like, great. Mm-hmm. Let them put all their attention on me. These guys will smoke them." Mm-hmm. just another, like you said, another example of this guy just being not only the talent that they needed, but like the leader and the
Yeah.
person that they needed, especially coming off last season.
Yeah.
With some of the personalities that we like, with some of the things that we heard happen in the locker room last year, how divided it was, you know, how off it was. Having a guy like that come in to sort of step in as the new guy and be like, none of this is not flying here.
Yeah.
Is just, again, why those guys, why Howie says what he says, why Laurie says what he says, why Nick says what he says, and why Jalen says what he says to him, right? He's like, you change this. And Saquon's like, it's not on me, man. It's not just me. And Jalen's like, look, it takes everybody, but you don't know what you did to this team. And again, sets the record for the most rushing yards, right, in a season. Just, it will go down as one of the all-time greatest seasons an Eagle period has ever had.
Yeah. And an all-time running back season.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah, really fun 40 minutes. I have it downloaded and I'll probably
I've
watch
watched it more than a dozen times already.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. Just such a fun way to relive that whole Super Bowl. Also saw a clip of Cooper DeJean's pick 6 with the Moneyball music behind it.
Yeah.
And like different clips of audio from him getting drafted. And yeah, so just when I thought I was done crying new tears, that stuff starts coming out. So all right, let's jump to the parade real quickly, and then we'll talk about the unscripted that was released today. So I started the parade a little later. I spoke and then came home, and it was about an hour and a half in by the time I started it. And honestly, like, about what you'd expect from a fan perspective, almost 2 million people. I think it's 1.7 is what I read, which was awesome. That's awesome. Again, I don't know. I don't think I said it on this show. I experienced it in 2018 and I was good. That is not a box I have to check twice. 37-year-old Azzy is perfectly fine sipping on bourbon at home, watching it and listening to all the speeches here. I appreciate what these guys did, and I support in other ways, and I watched and loved it. But just a couple of fun things from this. The first being Quinyon Mitchell. Every time I saw the guy, he was holding a picture.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't Jalen Hurts as a Saint, it was Cooper Billy DeJean, with the Michael Jackson pose. Like, just every time you saw him, barely able to stand. Jalen Hurts holding him up. James Bradbury saving him from reporters. Just, he was hilarious.
Yeah.
He really, really was.
Yeah.
And good for him, because he's another guy who's not getting talked about enough.
Right.
When push comes to shove. Jake Elliott having the time of his freaking life, and good for him.
I was about to say, good Lord, did he earn it after all that going perfect in the Super Bowl when they needed to, like, they had to keep scoring some kind of points. You know what I mean? Like, they had, obviously at some point it was kind of done, but he had to keep making stuff. He couldn't give the Chiefs a bit of momentum, right? You miss a field goal, they get it in better field position, whatever happens. And he was fantastic.
Yeah. So watching him kick beer bottles.
Yeah. Great.
Brendan Mann holding them for him.
Yeah.
Like, have a day, guys.
Yeah.
You've earned it.
Yep. That's
have
right.
Have a day. Nolan Smith.
The
I
Instagram
love 'em.
post was so good. Like
I had
yesterday or
one
today.
beer and then I
Yeah.
had 2 beers. Yeah. Well, it was today because I all day yesterday I was looking for some sort of like
Yeah. Sign of
sign that
life. Yeah.
he was alive and
Yep.
but the ultimate this is how it started and this is how it ended like post is seeing Nolan Smith at the beginning with the jacket on, sunglasses, whatever. And then, halfway through, dude's got like a stain down his shirt. He's carrying kids on his shoulders, like, and has to be put in like a police escort to get him like to safety somewhere. Just, I look, the young dudes had a day, and they
Yeah.
deserved.
Yeah.
They did. Guys like him who were such major parts
Yeah.
of what happened.
Well, yeah. I think Q is the funniest because Nolan's like an outgoing guy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like you can
for sure.
almost expect it. Q like has been almost stoic outside of the celebration dance that he does and like a few sideline interactions that they've caught on like an unscripted or something like that. Generally in his interviews, like he's very, he's respectful, but he's not like, he doesn't go on and on about anything. He answers the question. He, stands there. He answers everybody. He's respectful. But like to see him just kind of be going crazy was just hilarious. Just so good.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah.
He really was. Josh Sweat wore the
Chris Long.
the Chris Long fur, which I thought was great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. Saquon was barely on the float.
Yeah.
He was running all over the place and high-fiving people, riding the bike, shotgunning beers, lifting the ball boy over the barricade, all these things. So he was having the time of his life too. I mean, they all were. Howie getting hit in the head with a beer was quite a moment.
That video is tough.
It was. One of the players' wives, I think it was Calcaterra's wife, got hit in the head with a beer too.
Oh no, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Maybe
she
ease
ended
up on
finishing
throwing
with it.
full beer cans at people, especially when they're not looking.
Yeah, I think if you make eye contact and they are,
yes, and they're in the ready position.
Yeah, because there was even one that like someone threw. Saquon saw it coming, was waiting for it, but it was such a bad throw,
right,
that it went over his head and hit one of the players' wives in the back.
Yeah, right.
And it was like, all right, guys, like,
these things aren't light. You know what I mean? Like these things are heavy.
And you're throwing them like 20, 30 yards.
Yeah. Maybe let's ease up on that.
Yeah, maybe in the future, right? Call us the no fun police if you want, but
unless you're throwing like a seltzer, but like a beer can is a hefty object.
Yeah. Well, that's what at one point was it Nolan Smith? No, it was Jordan Davis comes out of nowhere with the stateside.
Oh yeah, the stateside shotgun,
the surf sides, and starts shotgunning surf sides.
Yep.
And I'm like, my guy, that's a vodka seltzer. Like they just like, oh my gosh, just so much fun.
So good.
And we'll fast forward then to the speeches. Unless there's anybody else that you can think of. Overall I thought they were super entertaining. It was what you'd expect.
Yeah. No, I thought it was
a lot of crowd interaction.
Yeah.
A lot of crowd interaction, which is no surprise. But the speeches, I was happy that no one tried to like calcify anything.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know about you. I'll ask you, who are some of your favorite speeches? What are some of the ones that stuck with you, even if they were a little more unassuming?
Yeah. AJ's was my favorite.
Let's go on.
Yeah, that was my favorite. I think I still enjoyed Jalen's because I think again we saw kind of the real Jalen a little bit. And I think any glimpse into that we can get is like fantastic. I thought Saquon bringing that kid up was like really cool. Again, just speaks to the guy. He also like pulled a ball boy in who was standing on the side, of the parade, recognized him, pulled him into the parade so he could be with the team. So I thought that was pretty good. I love Landon. I just love that guy. He's great. Lane, anytime we get to hear Lane talk, I love it. Yeah, those are probably the top ones for me.
Yeah, I love Jalen's. I thought Jalen did a great job. I love that, he talked about not coming to the Rocky Steps until they won a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he said on to the next one, like when he ended it. So I enjoyed that. So the kid from the New Orleans terrorist attack, one of the offensive linemen found him along the way.
Yeah.
They had met him prior to,
Right.
because he did a visit to the practice facility. And one of the offensive linemen found him and put him on their bus.
Yep.
So, then Saquon saw him and brought him up.
Well, yeah, then they all there, and Mailata and Dickerson carried him down the stairs, like in his wheelchair.
Yeah. Which, those two are freaking tanks.
Well, yeah.
I also loved Landon's. Landon just says whatever gets in his head, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I really liked CJ's. I thought CJ's speech was really heartfelt.
Yeah.
From a guy who, is typically known for his trash talk.
Right. Being a jokester.
But just what he said about crying when he left Philly, I think speaks volumes to the organization. And I found that to be a pretty eye-opening moment. Didn't expect it. So that was cool. Really enjoyed Jordan Mailata.
Yeah.
Getting up there and singing.
Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic and certainly in his wheelhouse. AJ's was really cool.
Yeah.
Of course. Really cool. But I would be remiss if I didn't tip the cap to Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, who all spoke, but spoke for like maybe a combined total minute.
Yeah.
Like you could tell that the plan was let the players have the microphone.
Yep.
It is not about us.
Right.
It's simply not going to be us. And I appreciated that. I think Mr. Lurie had the mic a little bit longer than the other two, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, but Howie just got up there, drunk and concussed, and was like,
right. Cigar in hand.
I bleed for this city. We're going to do it again. The whole thing. And then Nick gets up there and Nick barely even spoke.
Yeah, right.
He barely spoke. But the one that did it for me from an emotional standpoint was BG.
Yeah.
And look, he didn't say, right? But they brought both trophies up. And I think that said everything we needed it to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's our lasting picture of Brandon Graham. It was really cool. I like that he ended it by singing the song.
Yeah.
And we'll have that moment, for the rest of the time. Now, am I saying he's 100% gone? No, because I still think that there's a chance that he comes back on like a 1-year nothing deal just to be around the team and maybe gets 10 snaps a game. But who knows? Either way, he's going to be around the team. It's going to be Jason Kelce 2.0.
Right.
But a fun day. If you were down there, good for you. I know I had put on our TikTok page, like, whose speech was your favorite. A lot of people were mad about it out. That was happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what to tell you guys. That's just the nature of it, unfortunately. But just for context, one guy said he loved AJ Brown with the Adrian at the beginning. Someone said CJ and Jordan were their favorites. Daytona 73 said They were all awesome, but Jordan, Landon, and BG, if I had to pick, Sumac, Jalen Hurts was number 1. Don, Jordan Mailata, Shelly. Bro, everything was bleeped out to obliteration.
Yeah, that's a fair point. They were a little behind on their bleep button.
Yeah. Esol, favorite, all of them. James Deneen, world champs, Andre Henderson, Fly Eagles Fly. Paul Shilko, too bleeping, much bleeping. So definitely a lot of fun there. Definitely a lot of fun with the responses. But yeah, fun parade. From unscripted standpoint, Regs, if you haven't watched it yet, to those of you out there, it's like an 11-minute video, totally worth it. Also, if you haven't watched it, Jake Tapper's thing on CNN.
Oh my God, so good.
So good. But from the unscripted, you get to see all the players speak before the night before. Again, Nick is up there. Now, I don't know if we see the whole Nick thing.
Yeah, I'm sure he had stuff before that, but
that they probably can't put up.
Right.
But I'll say briefly that for me, again, CJ probably wins the one that, struck me the most. I mean, actually Lane too.
Yeah.
Lane basically saying like, we're gonna beat him up.
Yep.
We're gonna beat him up.
And tell them the defense, remember those t-shirts they wore.
Mm-hmm. They did not forget.
Yep.
They did not forget. But again, CJ, as he's talking about, just how emotional he was after the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And just, all the shit that this team's been through. He got me, man. He really did. He got me. And Saquon basically saying they can't F with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they've been there before, this, that, but they don't have a chance. This team ranks with this. I don't know about you, but what Unscripted told me more than anything else, anyone was getting it. You line any team up against them last Sunday, and everyone was getting it. It didn't matter who they played; it was going to be the same outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
I mean,
that's what I took away from Unscripted.
I'm with you. They were all good. Jalen, again, last time being here, that shit changed my life. I put on a good show, but I left that motherfucker so empty. Shit doesn't matter but winning. Ask yourself how you want to be remembered. And I think he was the last one to speak. So
they skipped him and came back.
Yep. But again, Saquon's like, the more I watch this film, like the more I'm just like, God, these guys can't F with us, man. Like they just can't. I thought it was cool, N'Kobe and Bond being up there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was cool. Again, on a row of like veteran Eagles guys, with Slay and BG and Jordan and Lane, and he like, obviously I know CJ's new, newish, but those two guys being up there, and especially N'Kobe is still a young guy, but like clearly a leader of that defense. I thought, like, again, when was the last time two linebackers were going to be in our leading group of guys to like talk before a Super Bowl because they were playing so well. So I thought that was really cool. And I think, again, just such a cool video that the team allowed to be shared. Obviously, it's much easier after your win. I get that. So obviously, circumstances being what they are makes it much easier to share that video. Mm-hmm. But regardless, like what a cool insight into a true team moment that none of us would ever be able to experience.
No. And like you said, I think if they lose the game, it's much different, right?
Yes.
You're not showing that if they lose. But I don't care who you rely on. They weren't losing that game.
Yeah.
And it was very clear. So after all of this, I think we've sort of highlighted like the unsung heroes. We've highlighted the heroes, but when you think about unsung heroes from that game, the names like Mora Jama jumped to my head. He was phenomenal in this game. We're going to hear about Josh Sweat for ages and ages in this game because of his 2.5 sacks. we're gonna hear about the Cooper DeJean pick, but like Quinion was totally locked down on the other side. Totally locked down. You know, we're not gonna hear the name Nolan Smith as much because he didn't have a sack. But I mean, there was a pulling guard. They're not going to want to pull against him
Yeah,
because he just blows people
he
up.
destroys people.
Just blows people up. You know, from an offensive perspective, Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens just being out there.
Yeah, just
period.
warriors.
Just being out there. Period. Yeah. I mean, Landon Dickerson is going to end up getting surgery like next week.
Yep.
It's truly unbelievable, and I think we would also kick ourselves if we didn't mention Oren Burks, and just the ability that dude had stepping in, and playing such a key role down the stretch. Remember, Oren Burks replaced Dre Greenlaw last year in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
for the Niners,
right.
And they attacked him up and down the field. Not a negative thing happened with Oren Burks in this game. He stripped Pat Mahomes.
He played really well.
He really did. And look, the Jalen Carter basically knockout punch to Pat Mahomes will go down as that'll be hanging on a lot of walls in Philadelphia.
I still can't believe that wasn't called somehow. I think luckily the refs were more worried about the fumble because they might have charged him like a 30-yard penalty somehow. If he had held on to that ball.
He absolutely smoked
him. Listen, I love Jalen Carter. He does always look for like one more little punch he can throw at the ball or like one little shove he can do. He's like really on the edge. He's going to learn this. He's going to learn to like take it back a notch.
Maybe.
Hopefully, because might be the most penalized D tackle in history if he keeps this up.
Maybe.
But good Lord, that looked like it hurt too. Jesus, can you imagine that hand that's probably the size of my whole head?
Yeah.
Like just literally slapping you in the face.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I do have one more thing while we're on the Mahomes front that bothered me at the beginning of the week. It sort of faded as the week went on. This whole narrative that started right after the game about how it was the worst game Pat Mahomes has ever played.
Yeah.
And that was basically the narrative. You know, it was the worst game he's played. Well, maybe if we pause for a second, squinted a little more closely, it would be as a result of, I don't know, the Eagles defense being really, really good. They were really good.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. They were getting pressure with 4. It wasn't like Mahomes was sitting in the pocket throwing balls, you know, airmailing balls. Like, it wasn't like he was sitting back there bouncing around and making mistakes. They were forcing him to get rid of the football before he wanted to. They were making him uncomfortable. And that's what happens. You know, if you don't get to sit there and wait and pick things apart. They were taking advantage of a smaller and not as good offensive line. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
Look, I know we have a whole off season to talk about things, and we're not going to do the free agent conversation today. But I do want to just hit on Kellen Moore real quickly. I think we would be dumb not to. Look, it sounds like Kevin Patula seems to be the front runner, although Jalen didn't really give him his blessing in his interview the other day.
Yeah.
And Jalen's gonna have a little bit more, you know, of a peacock trot now when it comes to this stuff. You know, you're Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
You might get your say a little bit in who's going to be the next play call.
Right.
There are some names out there. You know, I've heard T. Martin's name get tossed around a little bit. I've said Frank Reich.
Yeah.
As a potential name. There's another one, and I'm drawing a blank on who it was. From a play caller. Josh McCown is a name I've heard that he's very highly thought of in the Eagles facility.
Mm-hmm.
And my gosh, we would be going from basically a mute behind the microphone on Tuesdays when they interview him to someone who doesn't shut up. McCown doesn't shut up and couldn't get Kellen Moore to say anything.
Yeah.
But
I
don't know, man. I don't know where they're going to.
I don't know either. I think the biggest thing is who he might take with him. Like, he's interviewing that secondary coach who
Yep.
was a revelation for this team. And I think that's one of the biggest things Vic did, not just outside of his presence and how he handled this defense. The way they revamped their position coaching is arguably as important as Vic coming along.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's gonna piss off Nick.
Well, look, you can't do anything if he gets an actual coordinator position. You
Correct.
can't pick
Correct.
guys off to have like a position coach job.
100%.
So look, if he gets it, good for him, right? You can't really do much about that. But the way he handled Coop and Quinyon, like I think EJ Smith from the Inquirer wrote a great piece about him earlier in the year about the work that he puts in with those guys, and connecting not only with those two young guys, but you also have a Slay and a Bradbury's still around, and Rogers, who's been in the league, and got like it was a different group of guys.
Yeah.
And he got them playing as well as we've seen an Eagles secondary ever play.
Yep.
He'd be a tough one to lose.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of one of those guys who, some people are tagging as, an eventual DC, not so many years from now.
He's going to end up one. If it's not this year, it's probably next season.
Yeah.
I know that they're also interviewing, Moore's also interviewing like a defensive coordinator, and like assistant head coach from somewhere else. So like,
yeah, right. He's not a he's not a shoe-in. I get it. He got an interview with him. Right.
Yeah. But from an offensive coordinator perspective, we'll be patient and see what comes of it. It's possible that, we're talking about that before the end of February.
Right.
Whoever it's going to be, because they're going to want to know going into free agency, which is basically a month from now. So, look, Kellen, I think we all knew we only had 1 year with Kellen.
Yeah.
So,
especially if it went well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And now, with where they're at, it's the most popular job in the NFL. With what you have at your disposal, and it's an automatic look at a head coaching opportunity. So they're going to get people knocking on their door. It's a matter of whether or not Nick wants someone that he thinks is going to stick around for a little bit.
Yeah.
Or if he's willing to just turn it over every year. But we'll keep an eye on it.
Yep.
If there's an announcement, I'll get on social media and make sure that we address it right away. We'll also talk about it on the show. Otherwise, Regs, we leave it here, but we take it with us, right? Like this will be the last time that we like really hone in on the Super Bowl. I will tell you that I'm going to take the moment to star that on my preseason predictions, that I believe the Eagles would win the Super Bowl.
Yep. Give that a big old check mark.
I put 2 stars next to it. I don't know if I'll be able to pick it 2 years in a row, but I did it for this year, and it worked out. I look, man, I'm gonna end with this. And this is to anybody who listens from an Eagles fan perspective, and I'm gonna follow my own lead on this. You're going to have people continuing to say negative things about Jalen Hurts. And at this point, the best possible advice that I can give is just let him. Don't let it work you up. Don't make it cause, an argument on social media that you're never going to win. They're not going to let you. Right or not, they're not going to let you. We know what we have in Philly. We know who he is. Plain and simple. He's a winner. He's a winner. And we can be okay with that. Let everybody else be upset about it. Let everybody else rank every other quarterback ahead of him. Let everybody else say that he can't win another one and that he's a product of the team around him. Last I checked, no quarterback ever walked onto the field in February game. It's not isolated to Jalen Hurts. Other things have to go right. Other players have to make plays. So let them say it. And let them be wrong.
Mhm.
Because I firmly believe this dude's winning at least one more in his time in green, if not more than that.
Yeah.
The mentality's there. As long as the drive stays the same from the rest of the guys around him, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
They're not. Look, there are going to be years with injuries and different things like that. We know that. But let people say what they want to say about Jalen. We know what we have. We have a winner, Rex.
That's right.
All right. Anything else for the good of the cause, buddy?
Just if there's more content to be had, keep it coming. I will consume all of it. So if there's, some, videos being produced right now, just know, keep it coming. I can't wait to watch every single one of them. It's a wild ride, man. It's a wild ride. And this team is somehow still very young and still full of talent. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't want to, it's very hard to do what the Chiefs have done, what the Patriots did. It's very hard to do what those teams do or did. And it won't be easy next year. But
no,
I'm happy that this team is where it is and that we have an owner and a GM who always this is where they want to be. They're not looking to rebuild or, be in the middle. That's not what they're trying to do. And they'll keep doing whatever they can to keep this team as a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah. And that all starts in a month.
That's right.
Free agency is in about a month, 4 weeks from now.
Yep.
And then in 2 months, almost to the day, I think it's like 9 weeks, is the NFL draft. And another opportunity for the Eagles to add to what has been a very impressive run of picks. Although, early spoiler alert, I don't expect them to be picking at 32.
I mean, very quickly, 30 seconds. Does the 2024 draft go down as one of the best drafts in Eagles history?
I think from a production standpoint of what they've gotten out of the certain guys right out of the gate, yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue, but it's also like if you look back at the last 3 years,
right? You could go back to the Smith and Carter draft, right? You could.
I mean, well, they were two different drafts.
No, Nolan Smith. I meant.
Oh, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you go back to that one. You could go back to, is it Devontae and Landon? Is that the same year? I can't. I have to look back.
This will be a show episode. We'll go back and we'll figure this out.
Yeah, I think that'll be a fun thing to talk about.
Jot this down as a yep.
As we get closer to the draft.
Yep.
But for now, I would say it's up there for sure. All right, everyone. We will be back on Thursday. On Thursday, we'll probably have a little bit of a look. We're gonna. I think I can safely say Thursday's probably going to be a Phillies show.
Yeah.
I think we can, step back from the Eagles, unless something gets done in terms of a contract or an offensive coordinator. We're gonna take a step back and really focus in on the Phillies and camp and some things to look forward to with spring training. And before you know it, we'll be previewing free agency and having those conversations, making predictions for March. In literally a week. So for now, go ahead and follow us wherever you get your podcast. Click subscribe on the YouTube channel here below us if you're watching. Go ahead and follow and rate wherever you get your podcast. Then jump on to social media at the pod on Twitter, at the Mic Drop 5, at Big Regs with a Z. Jump on to Facebook at the Phixated fan page and TikTok, which has become my new favorite of social media, at the Phixated Pod. Merchandise link in the show description. We will talk to you all on Thursday when we get into the Phillies and all of the things happening in Clearwater. But until then, thank you, birds.
Good night, everyone. I'm going to Disney World.
Oh, God, deep to right field, way up there, and way out of here!
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.